This video is a retelling of It Gets So Lonely Here visual novel. It's one big spoiler. It's made either for those who are sure they won't have time to read it, or for those who already did. So if you want to play the game yourself, follow the link in the description and then come back. We are starting as a young lady running through the forest. The trees there are like monuments to a foreign god. All the same, it's the middle of the night. The moon is up there. The light of the moon sinks through the trees. It's foggy, but even if it were not foggy, or even if it were the day, we would still not be knowing where we are running. In this forest we don't know. It's cold. The heart pounds out of our chest. Our knees and our shins are bruised and scratched. Our dress is torn, but we have no other choice but to run. As it turns out, we are running from a mysterious figure, a female figure. We had a contract with her, the contract that stated that we will never be alone. And now it's too late, but still, we run. And we stop at a dilapidated signpost, which is quite strange and surreal given it's the middle of nowhere, and there are 3 choices to make. Our logic behind the choice will be the following. If we get to the shore, it's virtually a dead end. It's physically a dead end. We will not be able to go anywhere besides the little hope there is that there will be a ship or something, but it's very unlikely. And it was already mentioned, we don't know this place. The castle may be hospitable to us if the lord that lives there, if they are kind enough. But there is also a possibility they are not. So it's like 50-50. But in the village there are a lot of stuff. There are a lot of people, probably. And even if they're half of a bad people, and even if the majority of people are bad, there is still the chance to find a good human being. And even if the village is abandoned, in an abandoned village there are more stuff than in an abandoned castle, because probably in the abandoned castle is more rich stuff, but in the village it's easier to hide because there are so much houses there. So the choice is to go to the village. While you are going to the village, you are hoping to find a kind woman with brown hairs and sturdy hands, like a caring mother who is happy because of the toil you're engaged with in the village. By the way, you didn't have a mother, and you can only speculate on what mothers are like. Engulfed in your thoughts, you approach the village, but soon the illusions fade. All houses are broken and dilapidated. Some don't have windows or doors, and the darkness in the rooms is perhaps even darker than the night sky above your head. As you wander through the village, you hear nothing but your footsteps and the virile whistles of wind. And although you don't see any lights of night owls who don't sleep this night, you still approach all houses that look somewhat not broken and knock at each door, but no one responds. With almost no hope left, you suddenly realize this village has a church. You approach the church, and despite being humble, it still towers over you like something more ancient, something which is from another world. Besides the church, there is a cemetery, a huge one for this small village. Some tombstones are made like lozenges, some tombstones are made like crosses, and here and there are even some rare statues of angels. You look at them with curiosity, and engaged, you even forget about your pursuit. Suddenly, you hear a sound of a shovel. You carefully look around the corner, and you see her, a strange girl. It looks nothing like you envisioned before. It's not a big, hefty woman with brown hairs. It's a tiny, thin girl, almost like yourself. Her hairs are short and silver. But despite her appearance, she digs the hole methodically. She works with the shovel, like she's been working with it for decades. You decide to slowly and cautiously approach her, but despite trying to be silent the best you can, she soon seems to realize someone's approaching her. Such sharp senses she has. She turns to you, and you see how beautiful she is. Her eyes are blue as skies, and she looks very young and fair. She starts a conversation with a rough voice, which does not match her appearance at all. She says that she's glad to see you, and that she was afraid that she would see no one alive anymore. And she tells you that the strange disease took the lives of all the people in the village, and she's the last dweller. She will remain surprised you haven't heard of it. She thought she was the last person in the world. It gets so lonely here. She concludes the telling of her fears to you. Then she introduces herself to you quite fairly and invites you to her house. And although reluctant, you had no choice but to agree, and you wanted to agree. And while receiving this invitation, you notice that her speech is quite lively and sincere, unlike the cold, skillful impression she initially gave you. Her home is placed just at a stone's throw from the church, in the shadow of a twisted, towering sycamore. Or rather, it doesn't look like a home at all. It rather looks like a hovel. The interior of this hovel is pretty frugal, and the ceiling is perilously low. Not that low so that you can bump your head, but low enough so that you get a claustrophobic feeling. At the corner of the house there is a fire, not in the stone chimney and not behind the gratings, just an open fire, and there is a cauldron above this fire. "We are home," joyfully says the girl, suddenly reminding you of the fact that a person can actually value this hovel very, very much and hold it precious. She starts to cook immediately, and the scent of meat and unwashed bodies fills the room. You wonder, how does she bathe herself, because you don't see a bathtub anywhere. She stirs whatever she's trying to cook in the cauldron with the ladle, then takes a sip and joyfully informs you that the food is ready. She takes 2 wooden bowls from the wooden joists eaving from the walls and pours the liquid she's been cooking into them and hands one of them to you. You are hoping that this liquid is not some strange witchery made of snakes, like one of those you read in dark fairy tales. It's soup and bread for today, and indeed there is also bread, so hefty that you probably can kill a person with it. And although they do say that a person starts to eat with their eyes, and your eyes don't find this dish quite amusing, you're as hungry as you could have eaten a horse. Without having any third thought, you dig into the soup. You finish it in one go, and then you notice that the girl satisfyingly looks at you. You're abashed, but you're lucky. This girl is not of a judging type. She's glad that you liked her food. "I used to cook a lot for my father when he was alive," she adds. And you start to draw a picture in your mind. She lived with a father, but she also mentioned there was a plague in the village. Did he die because of the plague? And as such, the girl sighs, puts one of her thin legs on another, and starts telling her story. Turns out she's from the generation of grave diggers. Her father and the father of her father and the father of the father of her father, they all dug graves and lived in this hovel. No wonder it looks so old. And now she took over the job of her father, to the discontent of her mother in heavens, she adds. Her mother died when she was just 5 years old, and you thought that you could relate to that, although your parents haven't probably died, but you haven't seen them for so long. When her mother died, all the household work was on her. Cooking, cleaning, looking for her siblings. She notices your eye movements. She shakes her head calmly and says that her brothers died. One of them died when he yet was a baby, and another one died before he even reached 10 years old. You realize it wasn't very polite of you to look everywhere, and you apologize. And the girl says that you shouldn't be apologizing. It's alright. She knew for a long time that death is able to take all people, no matter whether they are old or young, prosperous or poor. This job of a grave digger helps to understand that. Death is the ultimate equalizer. Death comes to all us in the end. But she tells she still had her father, who cared about her, and the people of the village were very kind and supported their family. But then the plague came, and suddenly everyone died, just like that. She doesn't even remember how far ago that was. Probably not as far as she thought that to be, but she seemed to have lost the sense of time. It felt like forever. Her father was among the first ones to die. Probably he captured the illness from one of the bodies he buried. The disease starts with gray clammy skin. Then there comes the fever, the stomach cramps, and then the pustules. Eventually they reach the size of an egg, and when they blast, they fill the room with a horrible stench of death. Once a wise woman came to look what she can do to help the girl's father, but when she saw these pustules, she said that she didn't want to come near. The girl says that she understands her now and it was wrong to blame her, but at the moment she was very angry at her, and she said that she wished for her to have this illness as well. And several days after, the woman also captured this disease. The girl closes her eyes and starts to tremble. She says she felt like she've cursed her. You say that you are sorry, and this girl again shows her kindness by saying there is nothing to be sorry about. She just tells her story. You shouldn't worry much. I wonder, she says, why did death not come for me? I was already prepared, she says, for the deathbed. I prepared to accept my fate. But it's ironic. Probably death got fed by all the people in the village. Or perhaps she just left her because she can fulfill her role as a grave digger, to dig holes and to bury everyone in the village. She started trembling again. It seemed as if she's about to cry, and you instinctively reached your hand to her. But then you stopped. You realize you can't hug her because you don't know her enough. You can't hold her hand, can't even pat her on her head because she's not some kind of a child. You take your hand back. She says again that you shouldn't really worry. She got used to being alone. And, on the other hand, now she has you. She said it with a sudden joy in her eyes. Of course, you're just a traveler, she adds, but at least I can give you some rest and some food for the time while you're here. I have a spare bedroom. I should prepare it for you, she says. And she goes away. You're kind of surprised this little house has a spare bedroom. Perhaps that was a bedroom where her father took rest before dying. But it doesn't matter much. You're not the one to choose. While you were running through the forest, desperate to escape your pursuer, you had no thought in mind beyond finding some safe sanctuary in which you could recuperate. The bedroom turns out to be as crampy as you thought it would be. Although the bed is not like the piles of straw you've been ready to. It's a comfortable bed with clean sheets. Your hostess even suggests you a gown. She adds that, yeah, it's quite shabby one. It's her gown, but it's clean. She noticed that your clothes are all worn and torn, so you could use this to sleep in. You yawn and she doesn't fail to realize that you want to sleep. She excuses herself and leaves you alone in the bedroom. And you realize that you kind of miss her. Her presence added some warmth that you lacked during all your hardships. You undress yourself, although it takes much more time than you expected because your fingers are very cold. You put on a gown that indeed it is somewhat shabby, and you lie onto the bed. You wonder whether you will be able to sleep at all after all this hardship you encountered. You can remember it as if it were right now, how you were running through the forest, how your heart pounded in your chest. But very soon the tiredness takes control over you, and you fall asleep. You depart into the kingdom of Morpheus, but your sleep turns out not to be restorative. You always had a vivid imagination, and now you're dreaming about your past. The conservatoire, that's where everything started. You're there among other students, in your white blouse and grey skirt. You don't pay much attention to anyone, and they, you hope, don't pay much attention to you. You didn't want to interact with anyone, and one day, surprising for you, they completely disregarded you. There were no pulling the braids anymore, neither the sarcastic laughters, and first you were giddy because of the relief, but later you started to suspect something. It was very strange that suddenly everyone stopped paying attention to you. And one day, in the park, during the jog you were bid to do during your PE classes, you found it, the reason everything changed. Besides an old oak tree, there was a tombstone, and someone has carved a name there. Your name. It turns out they buried you alive there. Despite the strange dream you had, you slept long and well, and you were greeted by the chirps of birds in the morning. Despite being only slightly sore, you go to the main room in your nightgown. The gravedigger greets you and looks at you with the look of a person who solves problems, not complains about them. Then she quickly serves you a cup of tea and makes you a breakfast. The bread is as sturdy as it can probably damage your teeth, and the cheese is also pretty hard, but it all is food nonetheless. You appreciate it, and you got used to it. Day after day and night after night you spend in a gravedigger's home. She gives you some chores to do so that you are occupied, and you are grateful for that, because these chores help you to keep your head distracted from the thoughts and the memories of you running through the forest. But at night, usually these memories come back in nightmares. You remember vividly how the heart pounded out of your chest, how you desperately ran away. While you are busy with your chores at day, the gravedigger does her job. She digs graves. And you couldn't stop wondering. So one day you approach her and ask her, "Why do you keep digging graves? There is obviously no one around anymore." Her face first turned sad. That was probably even a little rude. But then the sadness melted into a smile, and she placately answered your blunt question. Her father and the father of her father always dug graves, so she kind of wants to keep this tradition. And besides, he also wants to keep herself occupied, because she'd probably go mad if she were just idling around. She makes a short laughter that actually reminds you of a braying of a horse, and you instantly start feeling guilty because of this association. And although she looks playful about that, her smile for some cases still feels unnatural. It's already dark as you're preparing soup, as you used to do in this house, and the gravedigger comes home. She seems very tired, the dirt is beneath her nails. With a soft smile, she explains that it's very pleasant to come back home after a hard day and see the food already prepared for you. You pour the soup into the bowls, and as she sips, you become very worried. You wonder whether she'll like it. You're not that good of a cook. Nonetheless, she praises your cooking. She says it's very tasty. First, you become uncomfortable because you're not used to praises, but then you couldn't help but to ask her whether she's sincere. She says, "Sure, your cooking improved so much," and maybe you think there is truth to her words. When you were starting cooking, you used to cut yourself very, very often, and because you couldn't waste the products, the gravedigger didn't have much products, so you needed to be very frugal. The soup always had a little tint of iron flavor to it because of the blood, but today you didn't cut any fingers. The soup indeed felt very warm and cozy. After you finished the soup, the gravedigger said that she needs to prepare some tea, and you blush, realizing that you didn't think of such a thing. You hurried to correct her, but she brushed your concerns away. "It's only fair," she says. "You prepared the food and I will prepare tea. The tea is very soothing." And eventually, after this generous dinner, you start to feel tired. You go to bed earlier today, and as you've already changed to your nightgown, you hear a knock on the door. There is only one person who can possibly be knocking, the gravedigger. She sounds very worried about you. She asks whether you feel well and whether she can do something for you. You invite her to your room, and as she glances over you, she gives a relieved sigh. You are not sure why first, but then you realize, because she were remembering how her father died, how it all started with awareness first. But then she saw there are no signs of any disease on your skin. She proposes to sit and brush your red hairs. She says it would soothe you, but you realize that actually it was her who she wanted to soothe. She's not that selfless after all, and you cannot deny her to indulge in that. She departs for a moment and then comes back with the brush and starts brushing your hairs. You sit close to one another. Her gravedigger's cloak is black, your nightgown is white. Well, somewhat white. Her hairs are white, your hairs are red. as she brushes your hairs, your reminiscence of your mother. Probably she also brushed your hairs, but you should have been very, very little during this time. Probably too little. You barely remember that. And right as you thought about that, the gravedigger says that she also been reminiscing about her mother brushing her hairs. What a coincidence, you think. Her mother, she says, complained a lot while she was brushing her hairs because the girl squirmed too much. Her hairs were always clogged, her dresses were always dirty, and she always spent time with her father near the cemetery or somewhere else in the streets, which were very inappropriate for a lady, as her mother thought. Her mother probably had a lot of fancy ideas in her mind. She probably dreamed of some prince coming and marrying the gravedigger's daughter. It's sad that she failed her mother. You thought of words of condolence, but you couldn't come up with any, because you well understood that bad condolences could well may also harm people. For example, you could have said that her mother actually loved her, and that she found time to brush her hairs nonetheless. But what if someone told that your father loved you? If he loved you so much, why did he send you to conservatoire? And yes, he was a busy man, but why did he not even write letters to you? So you just stay silent. My father, on the other hand, the gravedigger says, he truly loved me. But then he died. And saying that, the gravedigger started to tremble. You managed to say the thing that was certainly true, that it was not her fault. But still, she says, he did so much for her. Everyone did so much for her, and when they needed her the most, she failed them. She couldn't stop but wonder, what if she did something? She says that she's not even worth it to have you around. She's very, very afraid that something of this sort would happen to you. She says she wouldn't be able to bear it anymore. She curls up under the pressure of the loneliness on her back, and she starts to cry. And she cries and cries and cries. And while you're too weary to come up with any sophisticated condolences, the tiredness also helps you to brush off any doubts about doing one thing, and you rush forward to embrace her. She sobs, wetting your nightgown, and you spend some time in these tight embraces without uttering any word. No words are necessary for two people who understand each other's loneliness. And you fall on the bed, and you fall asleep together like two coddled kittens. Then you wake up in the middle of the night, and you can't help but feel strange. First, you feel like you slept forever, but it's still dark. Then you notice that something is tight around your shoulders, as if you've been changed clothes, but who could have changed them besides the gravedigger? But strange things doesn't end here. The darkness is too thick. You cannot see anything. It's just pitch black. You lie on something cold and hard as a stone slab. You try to budge, but you suddenly realize that there is no much space to move. There are walls right on the left and on the right of yours. You reach forward, but something hard is just a few inches above you. You try to swallow your dread and move more, but the realization slowly creeps in. Where else can you be besides in the coffin? And as soon as you realize that, you hear some irregular drummings. They sound as if some giantess tapped on the lid of your coffin. Or rather, could it be rain? And you realize it's dirt falling on the lid of your coffin. Your fate was going to inevitably catch you anyways, but you don't want to admit it. Not content to simply lie there, you cry out. You cry out to the gravedigger. You hope surely it's some mistake. When she realizes that you're alive, she will take you out of this coffin and embrace you with the embraces she embraced you last night. So you cry out with all the strength that you have. And then, hopefully, you hear that the sounds of drumming stopped, and you hear her voice, faintly, because it's filtered through the coffin. "Oh, it's so unfortunate that you are already awake," says in a very unfittingly reasonable voice. "I hoped for you to sleep much longer. That would have saved me this uncomfortable conversation." And then you realize that probably it wasn't a mistake. Probably the gravedigger wanted to bury you alive, and she's dead set on doing that. So you cry out loud in an attempt to confirm your speculations, and with the same reasonable voice, the gravedigger explains you. Digging graves and burying people is her job. She was very disappointed when he had no one to bury anymore. But then you appeared, and it gave her hope. But something in this telling didn't add up. Something is wrong there. So you cry out loud again, as hard as you can, that you won't leave her, that you will be with her forever. And you do hate something in her, because she answers. But the answer isn't what you'd hope for, though. She says she cannot believe you. After all, you're a traveler, and travelers always go. But if she bury you, you'll stay with her forever. She promises that she will even plant flowers on your grave, and she put your grave just a stone's throw away from her home. This way, she will never be alone again. You understand that reasoning with her is futile. You understand that there is nothing you can come up with to change her mind. But you cannot accept your fate. You continue to scream and beat with your knuckles at the lid of the coffin. You scream and fight, until all the sounds become silent enough that they disappear, because the layer of dirt above you became just so thick. So, we've been given two options, to accept our fate and to fight against it. And I think it's just natural, given what we've been just doing, to continue fighting. You choose to fight against your fate, and the game addresses you directly. It says that it's actually surprised that you won't accept it. But okay, it will give you another chance. Try not to bury yourself alive next time. It's so hard to bear your screams. And as such, you've been given another chance.